right, thank you everyone for joining us this morning at the Oregon State Board of Agriculture meeting. Today is Thursday, September 12th, 2024. I'm Elin Miller, Chair of the Board, and this meeting is now officially called to order. I'd like to begin by asking the Department of Agriculture Board Coordinator Carla Valness to review a few housekeeping items for this morning's meeting.
Good morning, this is Carla. I'd like to remind people to please mute your phones or computer audio during the call to prevent unnecessary background noise. We also request that board members and presenters turn on your web camera during the call. And if you are joining the meeting online, pre-meeting materials are posted on the ODA website at oda.direct/boardagriculture or will be posted after the meeting. Just a reminder, this meeting is being recorded.
Carla, would you please call the roll for introductions, and I'll begin. Elin Miller, Farmer, Umpqua.
Chad Allen.
Chad Allen, Dairyman.
Barbara Boyer.
Good morning, Barbara Boyer, Chair of the Soil Water Conservation Commission.
Brian Harper.
Brian Harper, Farmer, Member, Junction City.
Ty Kluwer.
Ty Gleaver, Farmer, Rancher, Klamath Falls.
Miguel Lopez is not available. Ellie Norris.
Ellie Norris, Farmer, Umpqua.
Eric Oram.
Good morning, Eric Oram, Farmer, Heppner.
Luisa Santa Maria.
Luisa Santa Maria, Public Member.
Josh Zielinski.
Josh Zielinski, Norsherman, Salem, Oregon, Board Member.
Dean Simonich.
Stacy Simonich, Dean of the College of Agricultural Sciences at Oregon State University and Director of the Oregon Agricultural Experiment Station.
Director Sharpelo Hansen.
Lisa Sharpelo Hansen, Director, Oregon Department of Agriculture.
We'd also like to ask people that are online to please use the chat box to sign in with your name and organization. We will only be monitoring local issues, so please refrain from using the chat box to chat with board members or other folks on the call. And then we'll go around the room here this morning. Casey?
Casey Prentice, Oregon Department of Agriculture.
Carlos Bonilla, Herrick Director. Rusty Rock, Department of Agriculture.
Jim Johnson, Department of Agriculture.
Lindsay Eng, Department of Agriculture.
John Sand, Willard, Farmer, Umpqua.
Super. Please note, everyone, that public comment is scheduled for 10:15 this morning. We received 2 requests to provide verbal comments ahead of today's meeting. And if you'd like to provide verbal comments this morning, please make a request in the chat box, including your name and organization. And again, we always want to have everybody remember that comment time is limited to 3 minutes per person. And again, a reminder that this is being recorded, and please, board members as well as those that are joining us to make presentations, please state your name for the record before you begin your comments. So thank you. And Barbara, it's great to see your voice on screen, or see your voice. Boy, yesterday was a long day. It's on screen. Thanks for joining us this morning. So, all right. First off is we'll turn the floor over to Dean Simonich, who also, I think it's fortuitous that we're here and we're going to be able to take in additional information about OSU. So
Great.
Thanks, Dean.
Oh, Stacy Simonich, member of the board. I am happy to be here this morning. I'm excited that we could be close to Pendleton and Hermiston. We're located next door to our Hermiston Agricultural Research and Extension Center, and I'll just say a few remarks, update about the college, and then I'm going to hand it out over to our director of the station to tell you a little bit more about the here. We last met in Burns in June. At that time, we did a tour of our Eastern Oregon Agriculture and Research Center. You know, these stations we have, like the one next door, we have 14 locations across the state. So no small feat to keep running and going and helping the community. This summer, we've had lots and lots of field days, including here in Hermiston and all our other stations across the state. So lots of time on the road and visiting. And in fact, just 2 days ago, OSU's president, Jayati Murthy, and I visited our station in Hood River en route to Pendleton. So she's made it around to almost every station. I think it was within about a couple weeks of joining OSU, she visited both this station here in Hermiston and our Pendleton station. So she's making all the rounds, which is great to see that interest in agriculture. In terms of what we're looking forward to this fall and winter, we're putting together our request for the state legislature, the upcoming biennium, for our statewide public services request. That includes research in the agricultural experiment station, as well as extension and the forest research lab. So we're busy putting that together, figuring out what CSL is, figuring out what else might go into that request. We're busy doing that. In terms of this past fiscal year, our research funding approached again about $110 million. That's about equivalent to last year, so we're really growing in those research dollars. Enrollment is really looking good. It's looking to be overall maybe 2 or 3%. I won't know for about a month or so, up about 2 or 3%. And so for a College of Agricultural Sciences, we keep continuing to grow, where many other colleges of agricultural sciences in the West and across the nation are either flat or going down. So we're excited about that. It's interesting, a big portion of that growth is on campus. Usually it's on our online e-campus, but it's on campus this year, which could be due to our efforts to recruit FFA students across the state, attending the state convention, having tables there, learning about the college and all the areas that we work in. So it's really, really looking good. If you want a good laugh, you can watch me in the Pendleton Roundup Parade tomorrow on a horse, which I do about once a year, but it's always a blast. So with that, I'll ask Dr. Carlos Bonilla, to come up and sit, and he's our new director of our Hermiston Agricultural Research and Extension Center, also known as HERIC. And I was really excited when he applied for this position because he's a PhD environmental engineer. And you might think, well, what the heck would a PhD environmental engineer do as director of this station? Well, you only have to look back at our conversation yesterday about the Labwama. Also, he's an expert in soils and groundwater and has worked in agriculture through his research. So he's really was a good candidate for this position. Along with, he has done research with the director of our Pendleton station. So we're looking for more of that research connection between this station and our Pendleton station. He handed out a flyer on each person's area about the station, and he'll give us a little update now on what the station does.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the invitation, and welcome to HERIC. This is the second oldest station in the OSU system, and we have 100 years of service in education, research, and extension. I was not here at the beginning, but I'm lucky guy of being here at this time and enjoying that history of collaboration with a lot of institutions, not only at the state of Oregon, but also around the country and in the world. This station has 9 research areas. We go from something that is traditional, which are the crops itself, pest management, but also we are very linked to natural resources. We have 2 specialists that are working in water-related issues and also wildlife. We are mainly focusing 5 main crops, which is potatoes, onions, corn, wheat, and watermelon. We have 9 laboratories at the station that are open to anyone who want to learn more and also help to solve issues. We have 4 greenhouses, and one of the special characteristic that this station has is that we have 15 center pivots. So in some way, we do research in the same way that the farmers do the farming there. So our extension companies is very linked to what they are doing because we are doing it exactly in the same that they do, and also we are working trying to improve that work. We have 225 acres that we use for research. I can give you some additional background about me, in addition to what the Dean was saying. I have a bachelor degree and professional degree in hydraulic and environmental engineering at the Dean says, and also a master in hydraulic and environmental engineering. I've been working for many years in nitrate leaching, nitrate movement, modeling, and also field sampling. For that reason, and I will give you some feedback later, I'm very interested about what the LabWAMA initiative is. I attended last year to the workshop that happened in Port of Morro. I stayed the entire day there, and we have here some of the researchers working and trying to contribute to that initiative too. I've been professor and assistant professor and later associate professor and full professor since 1996. So I've been 27 years in the academia. I've been having 30 graduate students in my background and also 3,000 students in my classrooms, which
Wow.
made me feel pretty old, actually. And now I'm so glad and happy to take a new challenge here at the station and contributing to the local community. Some insights about where we are now at the station. In the last year, we hired a new extension entomologist, and I highlight the word extension because it's highly linked to the local community, which is Dr. Josephine Antwi. She has a PhD in entomology from Texas A&M, and she was working previously as a faculty in a different university, but now we have her here. We have researchers here at Herrick collaborating with the University of Idaho, which are integrating drone imaging and using analytical spectral devices for precision irrigation and nitrogen. And highlight that one because I know that is particular interest of you today. We are working also in soil health, which is a critical issue, not only here, but also in the rest of the states and also in the world. We initiated a collaborative project with the Confederate tribes and of the Umatilla Indian Reservation, and we are working in two fronts with them. One of them linked to water quality and the effect of what the land management means and how they affect. And also something that is very interesting, I saw a book of you about grasshoppers, but we are working with bees, which is a very critical issue. Probably you don't know, but we have to rent bees for pollination here at the station for our blueberries, which it should be natural, but we are in lack of those very good partners of us. And we just opened, with the support of the College of Agricultural Sciences, a new lab at the station, which is called the Soil Hydrology and Irrigation Lab, which is a new research and extension facility that will contribute to regional, national, and international leadership in irrigated agriculture, soil water conservation, soil health evaluation, and natural resources. And we are working on that thing. We already have, in collaboration with the Oregon Potato Commission, we have some project with them, and we are beginning a series of studies to evaluate the land management and the effect of the fertilization in the area. And finally, we improve some of our facilities last year with the support from RDO, Valmont Industries, Cortiva, AgriScience, Amazon, and City of Umatilla, and I have to acknowledge all of them for helping us to keep our facilities working. Just one final words about what is my vision for the station for the next year. I've been working hard on this thing, and I envision a better balance between productivity and environmental protection. And this is a right side to do it, because this station has a good balance in terms of faculty member, research, and studies. I envision the combination of 4 peers where we can work, and all of you are invited to contribute on that thing too, which is the cutting edge research and science, the better is our science, the better job we are doing, and the most we can help to the farmers. And also, the better science we have, the more attractive to become to the scientists and to have the best students working here at the station too. And responding to the local and global needs, we have a big E in our name, which is extension. We are not just hiding in our labs and doing top science. We are also expanding this thing, and we are working for the people. The third one is effective communication. We have to be able to communicate what we are doing in a better way. It has been done in a very good way in years before, but we can do better on that thing. And finally, because of many issues happening all over the world, we have to work in a dynamic adaptation. There's a lot of changes happening, not here at the state, at the United States, in the world, and we have to be upfront of them, maybe 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead. So one of our duties is to keep thinking about the thing and also provide the best science and resources to all the farmers, stakeholders in the region, and help to do the best that we can. Thank you so much. And if you have any question, I'm happy to take it.
Just a quick question, Elon Miller, for the record. So how long have you been in this post?
A year and a half.
Year and a half.
Yeah.
Excellent.
I
Excellent.
arrived January 2024.
Sounds like right time, right place, given everything that we're dealing with. So very much appreciate that. Dean, do you have anything more to add?
Nope, just glad that we were able to bring Carlos in, give a little update on the station. So.
Okay, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you're welcome to stay here, but I'm sure you've got a lot to do too if you want.
I will try to stay, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we did this toward the end of last year, where we did a bit of a roundtable with the board on kind of what's keeping you up at night, priorities we need to think about. Certainly out of the presentations yesterday regarding La Guama and other issues with the new nitrate proposal going forward. You know, any and everything of that I'll keep us on time, but I thought we could take that opportunity to take a look at this. And one of the things, and we'll probably handle it during our business meeting later today when we get to our resolutions, but one thing that Josh brought up yesterday is we may want to have a new resolution. And so we can talk about that during our business meeting and how we might be able to form a little task force to get that done in a pretty quick fashion. I will open it up to the group, and if I don't have somebody volunteering, I'll volunteer you. So there's no pressure whatsoever, no. But we did this last time with just, you know, again, priorities, issues, those kind of things, but also be free to probe into some of the things we didn't have time for yesterday.
This is Josh Zielinski for the record. I know just within the nursery sector, which is kind of its own little thing, we're dealing with 2 new pests in a pretty big way. One of them we've been hearing a little bit about, even here on the board, is emerald ash borer. It's now in at least 2 other counties. They're basically finding out that this has been here for a while. So that has some impact because emerald ash borer has been all around several other states back east where a lot of Oregon nurseries are shipping their plants. A lot of us aren't growing that many ash anymore, but there's other crops that are affected. So that's one, and then one that's far worse is Phytophthora australis or something. I don't know. But it affects conifers, junipers, Chamaecyparis, thuya, which is cedars. And if you've ever driven around in the valley, like short of maybe boxwoods, which already has its own pest issue, now we have a new one that affects probably an even bigger number of plants. So a large portion of the $1 billion industry could be at risk. It's really early to tell what's happening, but it's a big deal. So that's just a couple things keeping me awake.
Ty Cleaver for the record. Especially the community that I come from and looking around Central and Eastern Oregon, I think stabilizing water supplies and having people knowing what they have to work with is a issue of paramount importance to me. And going through what we heard yesterday and projecting that against farmers who are paying all-time historic costs for many things and have challenges with market access and literally getting rid of crops. I think we need to have a huge focus of the viability of the people producing things on the ground.
Luisa, you had your...
I was thinking about Luisa Santa Maria, about the judge's comment about the importance of know before, be prepared when we have this kind of thing. So I don't know how the board or what we can do. It is an issue. Phytophthora is a problem since maybe 200 years ago, but we're still dealing with that. And I think education is one part, and also be prepared for that so we can prevent those problems. But we don't have sometimes all the resources to keep always alert to take action. But this is a thing that is coming, and yeah, as a plant pathologist and extension chronologist, I'd be happy to help or support any action.
Okay.
Yes, Director Norris.
What?
Director Norris.
Thank you. Ellie Norris. For farmers within my sphere, I know that production and yield is keeping us up at night, and issues with pollination. The increased volume from incoming markets, kind of on our shoulder seasons, is a big issue for us. Labor and wages, always an issue. And on a more personal level, it's dealing with legacy farm transitions and multi-generational farm and navigating that. And yeah.
All right, Director Oram.
Eric Oram. I sat around a update like this day before yesterday, and a common thread for the wheat industry was pretty much for the Wasco, Sherman, Gillum, Morrow, Umatilla, our wheat growing area, was we all cut above average crops this year. We had some timely May rains, which helped tremendously, even some record crops in some of the counties. But with our cost of production and just increased wage costs, fertilizer, chemical, across the board, cost of productions is higher than it's ever been. We were lucky to break even with a good above average crop. So it's a little worrisome going forward. We're carrying a lot of wheat over from last year, and now we're going to carry wheat most likely over to next year because there are growers that are not passing contract on their wheat because the prices are so low right now. They are below cost of production. And so I do see some issues going forward in the wheat industry, probably in the next couple of years at least, until we can get rid of this glut of wheat or bring down input costs. There was talk, this was a roundtable for the whole Pacific Northwest, and there was talk about, I want to say it was down in the Treasure Valley area, even losing some fertilizer dealers, and so they were down to one dealer, and basically they raised costs 20%, and last year was already historically high. So on a brighter front, cattle industry in this area is doing great, minus the terrible fires we've had this year. We were on a fire that on Monday, just in Morrow County, that burned, I would say, 15 to 20,000 acres in an afternoon. Most of that was fall pasture, spring pasture, and old CRP ground. It was in the foothills above Heppner, between Heppner and Condon. So we're still on fire. The rains yesterday were wonderful. I couldn't say it was a beautiful day yesterday. But we have active fires burning south into Grant and or in the Spray Mitchell area, Fossil, that have been burning for the last couple of weeks. And I think we're pushing 2 million acres now in the state of Oregon. It's disheartening that we've allowed it to get that far. I think that going forward, more organization needs to be taken, and more pasture and range and forest management needs to be taken a little more seriously. We shouldn't be letting our resources burn up like we are. Cattle, like I said, cattle prices are good, but having a place to run them is going to be tough for this next year. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Others? Director Harper.
Yeah, thank you. Brian Harper for the record. In the Valley, I mean, it sounds a lot like what Eric's going through. What you can sell, you don't make any money on, and what you can make money on, you can't find a home for. And that just means people are storing what they have harvested, and so at some point, it's just going to drop the price down when you can finally move it. Filberts, it's been pretty depressing the last couple of years. I mean, you're talking about 70s pricing with 2024 costs, and it's a pretty major disparity. Yields haven't been too bad. I mean, how we've kind of put together cultural practices these days is so much different than when my great-grandfather was farming them. If you had a ton yield, you were, laughing all the way to the bank. It was a good deal. But now you get a ton and you're doing something wrong. So, but when you take the costs involved with that, and of course we have disease pressure now that we were hoping we'd kind of helped breed out of the industry while kind of maintaining the old acres, and a lot of heavy mechanical removal and chemical application to help keep those old acres going, because it is expensive to replace an orchard. Folks were sometimes trying to cut corners to get the big bucks when prices were high, and now people are kind of cutting corners to try to save as much as they can, try to break even. And that's created a new blight, and it started up north, and we haven't necessarily seen it down south, but we've always been of the mind you take care of your crop will take care of you, and so we've spent the money even though we're losing. And our trees are looking okay, but blight wasn't down our way about 40 years ago, and now it's everywhere. So so there's always something kind of take the fun out of things, when it comes to ag production. But I think we're just kind of all feeling the same thing everywhere. So I guess I hate to sound so depressing, but it's just the reality of what's going on. So, but we do it because we love it. So, and it go as long as we can. Keep feeding the world.
Okay. Do you want to go?
Sure.
Director Allen?
Yeah. Chad Allen for the record. In the dairy industry, with the onset of avian flu, Oregon has been really proactive in being prepared. I just commend ODA and the state veterinarian for getting us prepared as well as we can. I do believe when it happens, it's going to be our way. But and so a lot of people have preparedness plans, increased biosecurity greater than they've already had in the past, and so we're kind of just waiting, I guess. In terms of other industry things, the dairy industry is just kind of coming out of 2.5 year real increase, high cost of production. So a downset in commodity prices, which are negative for some parts of agriculture, are positive for dairy. And so in the last 10 years, we've lost 100 dairies here in Oregon, and now we're kind of north of 140 of them. And so it's been a hard 10 years, but we're in a year of being able to take a breath, which is nice. For me personally, it's a much better headspace. But, yeah.
Well, I'll attempt to get us on a higher note, but no, I probably won't. No, my number one priority is ag overtime, which we will talk about later, because I think we will be doing a resolution as the Board of Ag, given a lot of other comments that I've received as a priority. But I'll echo Brian's. I will say the crop looks, from a hazelnut standpoint, yes, we're in the process of selling our hazelnut orchard, and we just hope the folks that are buying it are going to be as absolutely successful as they can be. But the crop looks great, but we're worried about fill again. And that was an issue we had when we had the big heat spikes a couple years ago that ODA was really helpful with the emergency stuff that came out, at least from a hazelnut standpoint, and lots of other crops too, when Christmas trees and others that had some major issues. By the way, Barbara, I'm going to go to you next. So, but then I also, from a standpoint of from our grapes, the whole wildfire issue, what you guys have been facing in the East this year, with livestock being so impacted and other crops being impacted. From a wine grape standpoint, I think I may have mentioned last year, we didn't even harvest a single wine grape off of our vineyard last year because of smoke. And so there's just so many extenuating circumstances, and I've been involved now, I'm pretty heavily involved in some forestry policy issues for that very reason, to take a look at how we can be smarter and better, especially in managing the national forests, either National Forest Service or BLM land, to be able to get almost like a take farm management focus, but applied to a forestry setting to just be smarter about how we need to deal with that. But there's underlying issues that have impacted the wine grape industry pretty dramatically. We don't like to talk about it because you don't want to necessarily impact your vintage. And so we've been pretty quiet over the last couple years, but I think everybody remembers 3 years ago, I guess it will be this Labor Day, when it impacted the entire state. So it was a whole different, focus and story. So anyway, I'll turn this to Director Boyer.
Thank you, Chair. What's been keeping me up at night is climate. It has been a very weird weather year in the Valley. It's been a record year with more warm hours than ever recorded. And it's produced low yields. I've had some farmers who have abandoned their barley crops because they're just the low yields. And we've been really high humidity. And lots of farms have actually abandoned baling up their alfalfa because it just wasn't getting dry with the high humidity. And then water conservation is another big issue. All junior water rights were shut off on the South Yamhill River this year, which has never happened before. So those are some, and then the emerald ash borer has entered Yamhill County. There's a large swath that we are watching up in the Chehalem Mountains. I personally have some of the most beautiful heritage ash trees on my farm, so I don't want them to go away. So I'm very, very nervous about the emerald ash borer and what it can do, because growing up in the East Coast, I've seen the impact of this pest, and it's not a pretty sight. So I'm hopeful that we're going to learn from what happened in the East Coast, and we can help save some of these heritage stands. Thank you.
And even from our ex officio, obviously, we've heard from you guys from a standpoint with what you've heard, because obviously some deals with, some of these pest issues and others are things that you can focus on. But maybe if you wanted to chime in a moment, if it made some sense on anything that you've heard or other issues that are keeping you up at night.
Yeah, I'm aware of all of these things. The college is aware of them. It's tough, but I'm also happy to hear that, we'll take up the question of ag over time. We've been doing some calculations for the nursery industry on economic impact. So anyway, tough.
Thank you.
For the record, Lisa Sharplow-Hansen, Director. So you heard a lot about one of the issues that is keeping me up at night and has since I came to the department last December, the Lower Umatilla groundwater management area. Just recognizing that the heart and soul of the region that we're in is agriculture and food processing. Relatively young region, I think, in terms of ag production in the state. That said, incredibly important because two of the counties are, I think they're number 2 and number 3 in terms of ag production economics. So trying to find a path forward where we can work with agriculture with a viable program that protects the water resource for the state and for people is one of the things that definitely keeps me up at night and I spend a lot of time thinking about. I think just generally water, period, is a priority for the Governor's Natural Resource Office, and we have a lot of conversations about it. Coming back from OWEB and having spent time in the Klamath Basin, I hear you around some of the current concerns. You may or may not know, OWEB 2 years ago committed $15 million as part of the dam removal process there. And so just watching how the basin is evolving and what happens in terms of water availability there is incredibly important, but we're looking at it across the state. I mean, clearly water availability is an issue. Water Resources is doing additional regulation around water usage and, trying to understand and get their head around, more regulation looking forward because the climate continues to concern me from an ag production perspective and having adequate water available. I hear in a lot of different forums, ag is a big user of water. Yes, agriculture is a big user of water. Agriculture produces things with water. So there's a natural connection to that. Ag still is like the number 2 economic driver in the state. And so knowing that connection, whether it's water quality, water quantity, just plays such a tremendous role in keeping the state viable in terms of our economics and our food production for the state, nation, and the world. So there you go. That's what's on my mind on a pretty regular basis. I mean, yes, there are trade issues that I hear about, and looking forward to some of the discussions at NASDA around some of the national issues. But clearly we have, and I see Rusty back there, I can't forget, foodborne illness issues, et cetera. But I will tell you, on the environmental side of things, that is where my head is on a regular basis, is how do we find the balance in this state with protecting the resources, but still having a strong and viable agricultural economy.
So on another positive, Ty Cleaver for the record, as a cattle producer, I would like to acknowledge and commend the department for being so proactive on enhancing processing. And as the ODA inspected program prepares to come online, I think that's going to create a lot of very exciting opportunities for producers that I commend those who've been here before me for being very proactive about and bringing to life.
Well, unless there's any more comments, we can actually maybe potentially end a little bit ahead of schedule on this section if our next speakers are here, but I'll stall while we were looking at that. I wanted to just say, you know, the reality check that we just kind of all went through in part is that ability to prepare for the future, ability to look at resourcing for the future, ability to have this board help the Department of Ag any way we can to make sure we're creating that balance as we go forward. So I appreciate you guys, you know, thinking about this, and we'll do this maybe, you know, if the director, I think you guys actually requested this time, which I didn't even initiate, believe it or not. So, so I think, you know, at least once a year to kind of do a little bit of a gut check, but always feel free at any board meeting to do that. We want active participation of our board members and all of their thoughts. So anyway, with that, I don't know if we have John Burt and Fred Ziari here yet.
Fred is here.
Okay. Okay.
John's planning to come. So
He's planning to come. So we'll, okay. So what, go ahead. Okay, yeah, actually, maybe we could take the break now and then we could save our break for later. So let's go ahead and take a break until this presentation was going to start at 9:30. Great. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we will reconvene, and we are so pleased that we have two people here, John Burt and Fred Ziari. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, to talk to about farmers ending hunger. And I'll have Lisa say a few words of introduction for you guys. So.
Thank you, Chair Miller. So we are really fortunate to have two amazing friends of Oregon agriculture and hunger in our presence today to talk about farmers ending hunger and the brainchild of a couple of people here. They have done amazing work over the years, and it just continues to grow. And our experts in the region and experts in collaboration. So I think there's a lot to learn from both of them. And I think I'm going to let you guys tell the story because you do it best. And we'll hand it off. So welcome, John. Welcome, Fred. Thank you for coming to visit with us.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome to Hermiston. Pardon me?
No, you're the Hermiston guy.
Welcome to Hermiston. I've been here a little bit over 42 years. I used to be the chair of the experiment station and been involved in agriculture for a long time. My profession, I have a what we call irrigation engineering and water management consulting company. A couple of months ago, we celebrated our 40th anniversary of our company. Now we are a global company. We provide engineering, design, and water management services to over 30 different countries. And, but our main focus is really Columbia Basin of Oregon and Washington. That's where majority of our work is done. In 2006, I happened to go to a meeting that I was invited by accident in Southeast Portland. I didn't even know what it was. I just went along with a friend of mine. At that meeting, it was January of 2006, I learned that some numbers that it really shocked me. I learned in that meeting that Oregon was the hungriest state in the United States at that time. And not only that, that even when you look at it today, out of last 30 years, Oregon has the misfortune of being #1 hungriest state in the United States. No matter what you look at, the numbers are done by nationally about food insecurity, people missing food, and it's all done statistically normalized, so it's all relevant. Most people, when they hear that, they don't believe it, they deny it, but this is the ugly, hidden part of our beautiful state because it's so gorgeous. It's so beautiful, mountain, ocean, beautiful people, amazing people. And then we have this hunger issue that is looking at us and is becoming worse by the day. It was interesting, at that meeting, there was a story that was told, somebody, a speaker, I don't even remember his name, that he was relaying his interaction with Mother Teresa in India. And they would bring 10 kids, she would bless them, and 9 would die, 1 she would save. And then one of our ambassadors to United Nations went to Mother Teresa and said, look, we are from the biggest, wealthiest nation in the planet. What can I do for you? And she said, do what is in front of you. I could not get that word out of my mind, even today. You come to my office, there's a big poster. Do what is in front of you. Don't look elsewhere. So when I came back to Hermiston, I set up a meeting for 2 months straight, met with all of our farmers here every day for 2 months straight. And I asked them 2 questions. One, did they know we were born and raised here? Did they know that Oregon is the hungriest state in the US? And everybody said no. Second was, would they dedicate a percentage, small percentage, of their farm for hunger relief? And 100% of farmers that we talked to, they said yes, let's do it. So that's when, after 2 months, we started that Farmers Ending Hunger in 2006. So we are approaching 18 years. And along the way, I was blessed to have John Burt, that was just retired from OSU, came and joined basically our fight to provide some relief. So we've been very successful over the last 20 years, and I'll have John to give you some, what are we doing and how we are doing. And it's amazing, really, numbers. But 2 things that we did was different. At that time, everybody if you needed food, you would go to grocery store, when you want to throw it, can you give it to us so we can give it to the poor? That was a wrong message. We need to treat people that are hungry or need food with dignity and respect. So we decided we will provide any food that we provide is the exact same thing you can buy in the stores. And second thing is, we talked to Oregon Food Bank, which we partner and have an MOU, that you tell us what you need and we will provide it to you in a systematic, not all at once. You need it every 2 weeks or you need it every month, we will fill that gap. So what we provide is a monthly, every month, 12 months out of the year, in a way that they can bring it in. It's all clean, it's all captured, it's all what we sell in the market. So they take it and they provide it in a way that is sustainable from their perspective. Don't dump so much food on us because we know they cannot handle it. So that was the 2 distinguishing things that we did, was regular giving and highest quality food, and as well as fresh food, whatever, if there is a change in fresh food, we provide that, like cherries or whatever we can do. So that is kind of a background how we started. We have a very, very strong board of directors from both Hermiston area, Pendleton area, and also from the Willamette Valley and Hood River. And so I understand most of you been to Pendleton Roundup yesterday. That was Wednesday. We have collaborated with Pendleton Roundup for the last 6-7 years. That the first day is dedicated to Farmers Ending Hunger. We get tremendous amounts of collaboration. Basically, our message is agriculture, we are all in agriculture. Agriculture is our business. Food is everybody's business. Let's build bridges between rural and urban through this new language of food, and it's been very successful. I turn it to my friend John. He's to say a few things about that.
Okay. Every now and again, we do send too much to Oregon Food Bank. It happens. I can't help it. I don't know if some of you may remember Rick Jacobson, who's from Pendleton. He was, and I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk too long because 2 days of over the loudspeakers and hollering at people and going to the Bulls Tuesday night, my voice is about done for, but I'm hanging in here. I'll speak slowly. Rick Jacobson was on one of the founding 5 board members of Farmers Ending Hunger, and at the time he was on the board of Oregon Food Bank, as well as Jim Ude, who some of you may know. He was the OSU Ag Econ faculty at one point, quite a distinguished man, but he was chair of the board. And so they formed with Fred, they formed this Farmers Ending Hunger. And the very first load that was produced was 163,000 pounds of frozen peas. They finally just decided we got to do something, so they did it. And they did it in they put them in bags through NORPAC. That's the most expensive and convoluted way to get it done, but they delivered them. It made the headlines on the ag page or the business page in the Oregonian, got some recognition. So at that point, Oregon Food Bank had some opportunity grants. They gave a grant to Farmers Ending Hunger. And I ran into Rick Jacobson at the Denim and Diamonds dinner that Agribusiness Council puts on, and I knew him from the Salem area and down there, and he knew I had an ag background. He knew I'd been on the board of Marion Polk Food Share. He pokes me, John, you got to do this. And I probably wasn't home from Portland. I lived outside of Dallas. I was living in Salem then. And I said, maybe I do. I had just retired, and I was thinking, what am I going to do? I went to your board meeting, December of 2006, said what I could do, stepped out, stepped back in. They said, let's do this. I'm paid, but I'm paid part-time and no overhead. Don't need any of that. And we shook hands, and 17 years later, we're still working on a handshake. It's not your best business model, probably, but a lot of trust and a lot
He's not a good businessman, by the way. Hardly pay him anything.
Yeah, I'm not too diligent on that. So we got started, and because we had the right people involved, first meeting, we had a meeting right here in Hermiston at the convention center, and the right people were there. People like Tony Amstad, bigger potato growers in the region at the time, and he steps up to us and he goes, can you guys use some potatoes? Well, yeah, we can. And before they were done, they were given 1.5 million pounds of potatoes a year. Talked to others like Bob Hale with River Point Farms, Marty Myers with 3 Mile Canyon. That's really where things kind of got going. Hansel's out here, Madison Ranches over at Echo. These are all readers. These are all significant players in the agriculture community because the right people were involved to begin with. So we started with just, some smaller quantities of potatoes and onions, and we eventually started doing cows from 3 Mile Canyon, made hamburger out of them. Marty Myers was a real true believer and just the greatest guy. Well, when you head back, notice Marty Myers Road past the 3 Mile, it used to be just 3 Mile Canyon. His name's there, that's a great reminder. So things grew as we went along, and one of the main things we developed was to take the wheat donations. They sell the wheat, write us a check, we take the cash and we pay for the flour. And when it started, Pendleton Flour Mills, which became Graincraft, which then burned to the ground 2 years ago, they would take it down the road because Krusty's had a bagging plant in Pendleton. So that was pretty easy logistics. But we took it to a plant, Pride of the West in Vancouver, that would rebag it for us. So we started out with 90,000 pounds and 100 and did 200,000 pounds of bags of baking mix. And we took a little breather during COVID, of course. They were having a tough time keeping Krusty's on the shelves. But we did 100,000 pounds, a little over 100,000 pounds in February. Talking to them, maybe do another 100,000 pounds. It's a great product. A great connection. We partner, if you're aware of Bushels for Betsy, you wheat growers will know about that. We just partner with them. They raise some money, comes through with Bushels for Betsy, we lump it all together. That's what we buy the wheat with. So then the next thing that happened with 3 Mile Canyon was it's hard to get 22 extra, as you well know, head of cattle processed anywhere around here, anywhere. And so we had a connection with Waltz up in Woodland, Washington, a large processing, the largest one in the Northwest, as far as I know. And they processed cattle for us for 8 or 9 years. And 3 Mile Canyon, Marty was donating about 22 head a month. But they finally had to say no, they just couldn't keep doing that. So COVID had just gotten started then. Talked to Marty, what are we going to do? And he says, you still need a hamburger, don't you? Well, yeah, the food bank, protein's hard to get. So we just started buying hamburger. That has evolved to the point now where we are purchasing, and we don't pay for very much of it. So you can imagine what 3 Mile Canyon is doing, 6,100 pounds, 6,100 pounds of hamburger a month. Certain amount, 30 boxes or crates or so, cartons stay at Blanche House in Portland, where Marty's wishes at the time, and we honor that still. The rest of it, about 5,100 pounds, comes out here to Capco Food Bank in Pendleton, and all of that stays right here in this Morrow County, Umatilla County region, so that it makes an impact. That's 6,000 pounds spread statewide. Might be 300 or 400 pounds here with their percentage share of the state. We arranged with Oregon Food Bank so that it all comes out here and it makes an impact. The donors, 3 Mile Canyon, thought that was pretty good idea. Oregon Food Bank eventually agreed to it, kind of broke the model, and that's what we do out here now. So the other thing that happened, and it still involves 3 Mile Canyon, which I think is interesting, is that our big potato growers, Amstead Produce, got out of the fresh potato business about 3 years ago. They just couldn't do anything. They still grow some potatoes, but they were done with that. And so we lost 1.5 million pounds of potatoes. We in the food bank, just like that. They were sending, their packing shed is outside of Sherwood. So all these potatoes are getting packed inside the Portland metro area, if you want to think about that. But they shut that all down. And so I happened to be, Marty Myers passed away, I don't know, about 3 years ago. There was a service for him in Portland, and some of you might have been there. And I ran into Greg Harris, who was the acting manager. And they're already giving us all this hamburger. I don't want to ask him for more. So, but I was just sort of grousing to Greg, and we lost these potatoes, and I don't know, he goes, John, just like Tony Amstead said, John, we grow a lot of potatoes. Well, yeah, I know you do. And they also have a wash area. They have to be cleaned. The food banks don't have a way to do that, to wash potatoes. And so they have a wash building. They can put them in super sacks, 1,000-pound sacks. And we started up a little bit after that, doing 1 truckload a month, about 50,000 pounds. They now do 2 truckloads a month. We're getting back up to that 1 million pounds a year. The hamburger and the potatoes all coming from 3 Mile Canyon. Greg Harris and Jeff Windler, the co-managers right now, are totally supportive. They're real good partners. So that's kind of the way it steps up. I got a 1,500 bushel donation from one of the growers out this way. It was the cash from it. $6 a bushel. That's a pretty significant donation. The growers step up. In all my years, anybody else? I don't want to name names, but the other grower that is Brenda Thomas from Orchard View Farms in the Dalles, and they donate as much as they can. And some years, they've been doing it 4 years now, fresh sweet cherries. One year it got up to 200,000 pounds, and last couple of years have been a little rougher, but we're hitting 40, 50,000 pounds of fresh sweet cherries. It's their culls, but you'd hard to distinguish between what you buy in the store and what their culls are. So that's been the progression of it. We are always looking for more product. Those of you in the valley know that NORPAC blew up, and we used to have about 20 growers that would donate an acre of corn or acre of beans. That would get set aside, and we would get that finished product. That doesn't happen anymore. We're hoping there's been some changes in the ownership there, Jane, and maybe we can start a conversation with somebody there. So that's how it works.
Thank you, John. I think all in all, we try to go about 4 to 5 million pounds of finished product a year. We could do more. We want to do more because the needs are greatest. Although the price of product has gone up so much, but we haven't seen people giving us less. It's just generosity is just amazing. So I just leave it for some. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. We can collaborate. Through collaboration, we are getting lots of cooperators, both in Portland area and here, and it works really well. We're very excited about it.
Excellent. I see Director Boyer, you have your screen up. Did you have a question or no? Okay. I didn't want to miss you.
I just had a couple comments. I don't have any questions right now.
Okay. I think we're ready to open for questions or comments unless there was.
We are done.
See no more.
You want me to go, Chair?
Yeah. Go ahead, my dear. Yes.
Okay. So thanks for this update. I've always followed this. I was a big fan of the late, great Marty Myers. Louisa Brian and I think, served on the board with him. So I just couldn't help but think about him during this whole presentation today. So thank you very much for the update.
Great. I have a question. So mainly from a geographic, Ela Miller for the record, from a geographic focus, it's North Willamette and here.
We've had some connections further down the valley, Lane County. We worked with Lockmead and did skim milk for a while. They had lost a place to send their skim milk. That's what they get because they make ice cream. They take all the fat out of it. But then they found another place eventually. And so we were helping. We have a program called Adopt an Acre where the public gets involved. You'll see that on the card. And that's to help pay for some of these costs. We pay for some of the hamburger. We pay for bags for the cherries. We were paying for cartons for the milk for a while. So we went as far down there. We've had entreaties into, the Rogue Valley, Central Oregon. We've done quite a few head of cattle over in Malheur County. The Oregon cattlemen have a local cattle associations have a ranchers feeding kids program. And I've told them, anybody, you've got a cattle to donate, I'll pay for the processing. And I tell them, as long as I got money in the bank, that's what we're here for. And we've done about 50 head over in Malheur County. We just had another one pop up a week or so ago, worked with Bonnie Christensen over there. Getting one or two processed at a time is doable. They find a place, and that particular meat goes to the schools. That's their program. One cow goes to one school, one steer goes to one school. So that's been over the east side. The bulk of it, probably 70, 80% comes from right around here. The potatoes, the onion, the wheat.
We are big agriculture communities are big, very generous. We are very connected to all of them. So raising and talking to them, we never get a no. We, just like they call us, they volunteer to do more. The thing is, we got to transport. That's where we need partnership with other people. Food is 100% free. We can do more, but transportation and packaging sometime, or freezing it, bagging it. There is some cost involved. We have really very generous donors that come through. They've been our partner forever. So we could do more.
Part of the policy issue we're looking at sort of in the background is a conversation around more regional collection and distribution models. Mm-hmm. If you think on the surface, you look at picking up all these potatoes here in Boardman and hauling 2 truckloads a month into Portland. But it's a semi-load at a time, and it's more than the local food banks and processors can handle. Goes into Portland and volunteers rebag it, and it comes back out. Well, the truck comes out this way every week, goes all the way to Malheur County. So they've got a pretty well established and semi-efficient distribution model. And we don't want to disrupt that. They think it works, but we think there's maybe some opportunity to partner with local business and others in the state to think about more regional distribution. And I think we could bring more product in and handle it in a smaller quantity that could send a couple of pallets at a time here to this food pantry or this regional food bank. The regional food banks, there's some members of the food bank, the regional food bank in Salem, Marion Pope Food Share, there's members there that handle more than some of the regional food banks out in the state do. So they're pretty small out here. But if you're sending a truck all the way out to French Glen in Malheur County, it's a 2-hour trip out there, and they get it once a month sometimes. We could regionalize some of that. So that's some of the things we're thinking about, and on a policy level, it may come up sometime. There may be ways to help that happen. So, something to think about. And I think our message really here is just to help awareness, and if you run into somebody somewhere that has excess product, there's a website, and if you contact through the email, there's only one place it goes to me. So I'm still the only employee, so that's why we're pretty low overhead. So, but anyway, any other questions, be happy to weigh in.
So a question, and you alluded to this. NORPAC was a big part of this in the beginning. We've lost a tremendous amount of food processing capacity in this state over the last decade-ish. How has that impacted your ability to provide a variety of
It's the
products?
vegetable side. There's still some people in the valley, I think, that say it's value-added food processing in the Willamette Valley. Well, that's not true anymore, and it hasn't been true for a long time. You've got grass seed, industry is large, and then hazelnuts. We were getting 150 to 200,000 pounds of finished product. Canned for quite a while. I got a great big can donation from Continental Can down in Southern California. And then it became freezer pack, 150 to 200,000 pounds a year. And the growers would donate an acre. They just wouldn't get credit for that acre of corn. It was a paper transaction, and NORPAC would set aside that amount at the end of the season for us. And some would go right to Marion-Pope Food Share, and the rest of it would go up to Portland. That doesn't exist anymore. I was this close to setting a deal with National Frozen Foods in Albany. And they liked the model. I went to their grower meeting. We talked about it. And then ownership had just changed. And that changed everything. And there's no growers. I mean, some of the growers still send, Piermine Farm send a couple of truckloads, maybe not even a truckload a year of some broccoli or corn. Stoller Farms in Polk County, I just know them for a long, long time. They send a few totes of corn every so often into Salem. There's that small quantities going on. Helly Rudenklaus, that you all know, they get it okay with National to send some corn or broccoli, but not very much. Not like we were doing. Maybe the potential is probably still there to do some stuff. Maybe we can open that comment, but it was huge. And I know there's still some product on the bulk side that gets outdated and goes directly to Oregon Food Bank out of the warehouses. It doesn't involve our growers in the valley anymore.
I think our job is to, because we are so grower-centric, all of our boards, we have a good feel of what the market is, and we can react to it. We've been very proactive. If we lose one, we can replace it normally with other sources. So it was unfortunate that we lost NORPAC. It was a great partner both in the valley, and we had it here as well.
Yeah, here in Hermiston.
But I think there are other opportunities. Our goal, to be honest, is, to me, Oregon, we need to make sure the awareness is there, especially in the Portland metro area, that we need to, through partnership, we really can resolve the hunger issue. It should be non-existent in our state. And we are dedicated to do that, but it takes partnership. Again, food, we can provide all the food we need. We just need to reach out a new level, and we do it. We get lots of partners, lots of people come through and support us, and we really appreciate. And I think your board is, it was a great opportunity for us to be in front of you. We appreciate it. And
thank you.
Thank you so much.
Director Norris, I think you had a comment or a question.
Yeah, I'm going to Ellie Norris for the record. I'm going to piggyback off your question just a little bit. And so for Southern Oregon, it sounds like there's kind of a gap in there. Do you have a footprint there at all, or partners? And have you partnered with any larger organizations like YMCA or Boys and Girls Club or anything like that to help?
Yeah. I mean, the gap is for us to bring food from Southern Oregon and distribute, and we do have that kind of gap. But as far as the Oregon Food Bank will distribute equally throughout the state of Oregon, every part of Oregon, and also Southwest Washington. We did some collaboration with Southwest Washington. So, but again, we would welcome the opportunity, but the type of crops they grow maybe is not conducive. I don't know. But
I know that the food bank, through the regional food banks and through their food resourcing people that we work with real closely, do cover Southern Oregon, and they work with Harry and David and some of the other fruit growers down there and some of that. So there are products coming from the southern part of the state into the system, just not through us. Not yet. But, if the opportunity presents itself. We've had opportunities in Central Oregon, an opportunity for a whole bunch of pigs over there one time that we're going to close out a big herd of somebody's operation. And so we get calls like that once in a while. We try to react to it and cover it. And again, if there's some issue, if somebody's got something and it's transportation or processing or packaging, that's where we step in and try and cover those costs so that Oregon Food Bank doesn't have to pay for that stuff. We did one time get a whole bunch of dried peas donated, 90,000 pounds of them, and it ended up being made into dry soup mix down in Roseburg. There's a soup maker down there. So some things like that happen once in a while. So we step up when the opportunity arises. But, again, thank you so much for the time here.
I have one more question.
Okay.
So if you could ask the board or the Department of Agriculture for assistance, what would be your ask?
Oh, a couple of more meat processing facilities that we could get, because we could get a lot more individual donations one at a time, one cold dairy cow at a time. We'll pay for the processing, get it made into hamburger or whatever, anywhere at a time until I run out of money. I'll keep spending it on that, but there aren't enough. And I know you know that, but I know that there's more money that's started, that's been available. And I know the whole inspection side of that has changed dramatically for the Department of Ag. So we follow that pretty closely. But in the perfect world, there'd be a couple more that could handle a few at a time. The cattle from Eastern Oregon go to Nampa, Idaho to get processed, and they're so booked up so far out that we had one cow from a 4-H or FFA member that he was out of his dairy herd. He was going to donate one to go to the food bank. We had to beg Northwest Premium Meats there in Nampa to take that one cow for that kid. So you understand, and that would, I don't know, Fred may have another.
Yeah, I think, Lisa, thank you for that question. From our board's perspective, shedding some light to this issue of hunger and how we can collaborate to solve this problem, raise their awareness. And one of the things that you particularly could do that, we used to do a lot more with the previous governor, especially during Governor Kitzhofer's and previous. And during COVID, everybody was, busy with their own thing. We need to shed some light at the governor level to bring, especially with the high level of collaboration with some of the heavy. There are tech people, there are tech companies. From the governor's perspective, how do we bring those to work with us, rural and urban, to raise the awareness? Awareness is the key. Most people, I'm telling you, I've been doing that for now almost 2 decades. People don't believe there is hunger issue. But the problem in Oregon getting worse, and we just need to address it. But it takes partnership. So maybe Oregon governor's level and would be a good thing to collaborate a little bit more.
I think it's great you're meeting out here in this region, out here in Hermiston, Umatilla County. There's some incredibly, Fred won't brag, but the infrastructure here, the irrigation systems that he's had a hand in developing since day one. I told Warren or somebody that when I call these growers, they may call me back, they may not, but if Fred calls them, they call him back. They pick up the phone. So the connection, I think there's that urban-rural connection to come out here and go out to some of these farms that we work with and see what that operation looks like and how high-tech it is and how productive it is out here. The productive capacity of agriculture out here is what allows us to do what we do. And the other side of it is to keep farming profitable, so they can stay in business and keep doing this.
But again, one thing, Lisa, our farmers, we never ask for money. I get from Senator Wyden, can we give you some federal dollar? I think we never ask for it. We don't want tax relief. We don't want any of those things. We just want to work through this. These are really important to us to be involved in this partnership and not do it because of tax issues or this and that. As a matter of fact, this is direct code. People will pull out of it if we start going that way.
I think for me, this is one of the benefits of having my career dedicated to Oregon agriculture and agriculture. I've been in the agricultural sector for almost 35 years, 7 years in the Columbia Basin before I came back to work for the Department of Agriculture. And this is one of those stories. We like to talk about, the Oregon way. This is truly one of those stories that is the Oregon way, where we bring people together, we collaborate, and we come to solutions. And Fred, you used words that mean a lot to me when we think about where we're at today, talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, providing dignity and respect to the people that need a hand up. That's the Oregon way. Yeah. And so thank you for all you do. Thank you for the ideas for partnership. There are a couple are spinning around upstairs right now with me that I think we could think about some initiatives, and so we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. All right, since we are running ahead of schedule, I was wondering if we could possibly move up some of the board business up until we need to break at 10:15 for our public comment. And I don't know, Barbara, I wasn't able to text you. I don't know if you could do your OWEB report right now. That would be great. So I'll turn the floor over to Director Boyer for her OWEB report.
All right, thank you, Chair. So for some of the new board members, I am the Oregon Watershed Enhancement Board rep. I represent the Board of Agriculture. So I attend their quarterly meetings all over the state also. Our last one was in July and we met in Springfield. We worked on, what did we do? We have so many grant offerings at OWEB. There's, I don't know, Lisa, there are 31 different grant offerings at OWEB. So it's always a robust meeting. They're very thought-provoking and time-consuming, lots of paperwork to go through. We did some water acquisitions, granted some funding for in-stream water leasings. Oregon Ag Heritage Program, the commission is under rulemaking right now, kind of modernizing the rules that they made 5 years ago. After going through one cycle, they realized there was some gaps that were missing in the rules. And then we took a tour of Rattlesnake Butte, and we learned about the return of prescribed burning that the tribes are doing. And that was fascinating. And I think it's something that we all need to be looking at, especially when we're talking about all these pest problems. I just think some of the burning that we're not allowed to do anymore is bringing in more pests to the state. So the tribes are really taking their prescribed burning practices seriously, and we can all learn from them. And that is my report.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? I have one on just what you were talking about, the prescribed burning. Is that agricultural open land, forested land, rangeland? What are we talking about?
This was more rangeland.
Okay.
This particular tour.
Okay.
Range and prairie.
Okay. Yeah, because the prescribed burning is. Thank you, because the prescribed burning is certainly something from an indigenous focus on forest land too that I think everybody is looking at as well. It's not that they haven't been, but let's just say there's more of an emphasis, but some regulations are causing some challenges in that regard. So great. Any other questions of Barbara? Yes.
So I would ask a question related to some of the land use resolutions that we've been talking about. Barbara, can you talk just a little bit about the status of the Oregon Ag Heritage Program and where OWEB is at in terms of the next offering for grants for working lands easements?
Yes, I've been sitting in on some of the racks, but then I discovered since I'm one of the decision makers, I shouldn't be sitting in on their racks anymore. So I'm not attending them. Let's see. So some of the modernization part of the rack is they're not going to do termed easements. They want to do permanent easements, which was really fascinating conversation. The commission really feels the having termed easements is almost not worth the effort, and that they would rather protect in perpetuity. So I thought that was a fascinating conversation. And we received another, or the commission received another $5 million last legislation to continue the program. They are going to have a larger ask this next session. We're just hopeful to get some to continue the program. So the next, I don't know when the cycle is open again for the next offering. They're going to wait to get through rulemaking first before the next offerings.
Jim, did you have something to add there?
Yeah, Jim Johnson, just real quick, Lisa, I'm actually on the review team for the easements, and we're actually reviewing 8 different grant requests right now, so we're at that setup too, so.
Any other questions, comments? One other thing till we get into, again, since we took our break earlier, I think we're just going to keep going through and we'll start the public comment in a few minutes. But one thing to point the board to, we are going to be talking about our 2025 board meeting dates, locations. If you haven't had a chance to focus on that yet, you might think about that a little bit in describing what that looks like. I think what Carla has suggested is many times this board has kind of met pretty much in the kind of second week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of a month. And I think what she is proposing is, does that make sense? Plus, does it make sense to have a cadence like a lot of other boards and commissions have, to say, okay, let's pick a month and then start a rotation after that, whether that be start January and then you do January, April on, or February, May on, or, you know, yeah, pardon? Yeah, and we were kind of, I think because we just set what everybody could, and the thought of starting the discussion early, that if we can see if folks get, in fact, I was just with 2 of my other boards saying, by the way, the Board of Ag is thinking about this, so, which this would take precedence. Other than one, I must have to say. But I think the idea of look at your calendars before we get to that, and just if we can arrive at something like that, I think it's going to be a lot easier. It's going to be a lot easier for schedule. We've been wanting to schedule with EQC for a while to do some joint work, and the deputy director luckily was here yesterday, which was wonderful. But you know, there's other opportunities for us too. So as you look at your schedules, when we get to the end of the meeting, we'll do that. And as I'm stalling still, the industry report update was listed here. I wasn't sure exactly what.
Yes, and 10:15 is our public comment, but you do have some notes in your tab 11, which is the board business book. That is a draft of what we have outlined for the industry report, and then take a little bit of feedback in that section about, are there key issues that we want to incorporate into some of those section topics for the industry report.
So again, be taking a look at that when we get there. And now I think we actually, or at least my bat clock, which this phone is new, so I don't know, we're not quite at 10:15, but we're close enough. We do have 2 people signed up, and if they are on, we can move to public comment. And that's Mickey Killingsworth and Peter Kanegi, both on Resolution 314. So Do we have them online at this time? They are.
Peter's online.
Okay. Peter, do you want to kick off for us then, please? And again, we need to limit this to 3 minutes, so thank you.
No problem. No problem.
And you can go on camera since you're presenting, if you'd like.
It's whether you like to see my face or not. But
what's your choice? We'd like to.
Thanks for this opportunity to speak in regards to Resolution 314. For the record, my name is Peter Carnegie. I'm a lifelong farmer in Benton County with a diversified, continually evolving mix of crops and livestock. Agriculture is a highly cyclical business that goes through both good and bad times. We are currently facing one of those challenging times, but it will inevitably turn around at some point in the not too distant future. The board shared this morning what is keeping them awake at night. What keeps me awake and frankly depressed is the continual erosion of our natural resource landings, with little thought to the long-term ramifications of our land base, our environment, and what we will leave for future generations. I've observed the changes in development over the last 50 years in our resource lands, and the trajectory has not been good for our long-term future. The proliferation of non-farm housing, replacement dwellings that end up being mansions that no farmer could ever afford, and agro-entertainment with little connection to all of which make it increasingly difficult for farmers to operate and young farmers to get started. I am highly supportive of the sentiment in Resolution 314 and encourage you to pass it. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Peter. Mickey Killingsworth?
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Chair Miller and commission members, I represent Jefferson County Farm Bureau. We've testified many times. I have sent in our written comments, but I'll do a quick summary. First of all, I applaud the August 20th joint educational webinar with LCDC. You had 117 people in attendance. I figured 30 of those were.
Mickey, you may have muted yourself. You got to the how many in attendance, and so you might want to unmute. Did we lose her? I can't quite see the screen. Did we lose Mickey off the screen? Yeah, Mickey, you're muted. So you need to take yourself off mute. Unless we can do that for her. I'm wondering, since I'm no real IT person, but would it make sense for her to go off and come back on if she can't get it off mute? So, Mickey, why don't you go ahead and jump off and jump back on, and then let's see if we can be able to hear your audio. We didn't see video either for you, but. I was going to ask Josh for jokes again, but he's. And I think we also have another person signed up potentially to testify that until we get this technical difficulty taken care of.
Okay. This is Peter. I just texted Mickey, and she said to tell you that their power went out.
Oh dear.
So-
Okay. All right. Well, there definitely was written testimony that was submitted, and we thank Mickey for that, and thank you for that. But we do have here Tambra, is it Mubat? Mabott from Morrow County, who would also like to testify. So, Tamara, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair Miller and Director Hansen. I never got an A in penmanship. So, thank you very much. My name is Tamara Mabott, and I'm the Morrow County Planning Director. Met many of you the other evening. It was lovely. I'm just coming today to say some words of appreciation for all of the years. This is of support from Department of Ag and your staff, particularly from Jim Johnson, my colleague, who's your land use planner. Jim and I met in 1993 when he came out to teach all the local planners in Eastern Oregon about House Bill 3661, which really transformed the way we permit farm dwellings, the way we have a different soil classification in Eastern Oregon and Western Oregon. And just to express my appreciation for the value of the support, not just from Jim, but your CAFO, all of those permits your state agency folks issue require local coordination. Those relationships are valuable. That process is valuable. In Oregon, we don't have NEPA or SEPA, State Environmental Policy Act compliance. We have state agency coordination based in ORS 195. You have a state agency coordination program. That's valuable. It means that as local planners, we're not the ag experts, even though I grew up on a dairy farm. I'm no longer an ag expert. So I, again, just wanted to appreciate all those years of support from your staff. I don't know how you're going to replace Jim, but best of luck to you. Thank you. Happy to answer any questions if you want to talk about land use. Us land use planners like doing that.
Okay. I think we're good, unless questions. All right. Thank you, and appreciate it. We certainly have appreciated Jim's contribution for years of being really the source of information for all of us. So thank you. Great.
Chair Miller, Mickey is going to call in instead of.
Oh.
So let's see if she gets connected here.
Okay. So Mickey may be calling in, and we'll see if she gets connected. And in preparation, when we're done with testimony, we may also start then our grasshopper update a little early. So if we could have folks who are going to be presenting, Lauren. Yeah, thank you. Again, I can't quite see the screen. Has Mickey made it on yet?
She's not connected yet.
Okay, we'll wait a couple more minutes.
Let's see.
Well, since Mickey hasn't connected, it may still be some issues with her power being off, but what we could do is, I don't know if it's protocol to be able to pop her back in, but my thought would be as soon as we could go ahead and get started with the grasshopper presentation. Why don't we get started with the grasshopper presentation, and then if Mickey pops on, we'll give her a little bit of time since it was a power difficulty. So, oh, there's she. No, sorry. Wasn't she? All right, I will turn this over to Lauren, I think, to kick this off for our grasshopper update. And I think all of us have our pest grasshoppers in Oregon field guides, and I was really disappointed I wasn't able to take that home last night and review it, but now I can. So, thank you, Lauren.
You're welcome. Good morning, everyone. Lauren Henderson, Deputy Director with the Department of Agriculture. And Casey, why don't you introduce yourself? And then Thomas, let's get you introduced and get the introductions over, and then we'll go from there.
Casey Prentice, for the record, Oregon Department of Agriculture.
Go ahead, Thomas, introduce yourself.
Well, hi, I'm Tom Valente. I'm one of the entomologists in the Insect Pest Prevention and Management Laboratory here at ODA.
So I will just say in the little time that we have, who knew my last board presentation would be about grasshoppers? I've certainly done a lot of, is Mickey back?
Yeah, Mickey, if you are on now, if everybody, a grasshopper could pause. Anyway, I will go there. Anyway, Mickey, if you could go ahead and give your 3-minute presentation, that would be great.
Okay, I don't know how much you've heard.
Okay, let's start the clock again because, yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, Chair Miller and Commission members, I'm representing Jefferson County Farm Bureau. We have sent in our written comments on Resolution 314. After listening to the Group B, I understand things are tabled, but we still support Resolution 314, and Farm Bureau is a policy organizational group and does a lot with resolutions. And in my experience, it is better to keep resolutions clean, and I would probably recommend you keep tourism items in the tourism section. The other thing I want to approach is that I learned from Senator Finley is, after listening to everything for 2 days, the only way you can get money from the e-board is through an agency. And we always thought you could send letters to the governor, send letters to the e-board, and get it done, but you must work through an agency. So I think it would be beneficial if agriculture knew that more, so that they know when there's a problem where to start. You start with the appropriate agency, and you are to me, the over-guiding agency of agriculture. And the other thing is I want to compliment you on your August 20th meeting. You had 117 people in attendance to that webinar, and I figured 30 people were probably staff. And that's it. And I know you don't take questions. I don't get asked questions. So I'm done. And Lauren can start talking about grasshoppers.
Hey, thank you, and hopefully you'll get your power back soon, Mickey. So thank you for that. And a good note on the e-board for people to understand that. And it was really ODA that really led that last effort for emergency focus we had, and much appreciated for agriculture. So thank you. Okay.
Good morning, Mickey. Mickey and I go back a long way since she's from Jefferson County. So as I was saying, who knew my last board presentation would be about grasshoppers? I don't think I've ever done one on grasshoppers, so it's always a first time for everything. But I will tell you, one of the things that I wrote Director Hansen in my resignation retirement letter was that my best days were out on the farms with folks. And that is certainly true when you have to look and see for yourself the devastation that things like grasshoppers have on production. And I can tell you that the grasshopper issues in Oregon have been cyclical in the past. Lisa might remember we had a certain board member that called us with a big problem in grasshoppers in Baker County. And I will just tell you, it doesn't seem to be cyclical anymore. It's year over year over year. There's a lot of reasons for that. You all know what they are. Drought, temperature, on and on and on. And along with that, I think there has been a lot of pressure on the federal lands, which is where Klamath certainly has their issues, to continue to treat. Well, the federal programs have to go through the NEPA process. It's complicated. It's long. They don't have any more funding than we do. And so it's been a hard issue, I think, to get everybody around. At the end of the day, we're not out to eradicate grasshoppers. They're native to Oregon. I think we have 100 species or so, and Tom can correct me if I've got that right or wrong. And it takes everybody working together in a community to suppress the populations. If we don't do that, then they get to an economic level, which I believe is 8 per square yard, Casey? Eight numbers of 8 per square yard or greater. And I can tell you we've had way north of greater. I heard of numbers this year of 200, 100, 50. That's a lot of grasshoppers in a square yard. And what happens when they're in those population numbers is the damage they can do is quick and fast, and you don't even realize what happened, which leads me to what we're doing today. We received some money out of the short session that was sponsored by Senator Finley and Representative Owens. We were given $1.25 million to put up very quickly a state program. We haven't historically had a state program. We've been part of a federal grant for maybe 50 years, a long time. And this year, it was pretty clear that the federal work on the federal lands wasn't enough, and it didn't concentrate on the work on the private lands. And so with that 1.25, we were already behind in our work because you really want to be talking about grasshopper suppression for next year, now. But we received that money in February, and so we were quick to put together, very quickly working with the counties, a program to get that money out. We allocated $900,000 of that 1.25 to the counties. And then the 350 was for us to go out, do survey work, and find out where those populations were, where those economic infestations were, and the counties were to use that money to try to buy down the cost from landowners. And so we allocated immediately $500,000 to the 5 counties that we know historically have had issues. And help me with that. It's Malheur, Baker, Harney, Lake, and Klamath. They each received immediately $100,000. Is probably one of the quickest grants I've turned around to get them money so that they knew what they could offer their landowners right away. I will just tell you going forward, this is a really hard program to do. You can't buy down the costs until you know how many landowners are going to opt into the program, how many acres are treated, and so it almost is a program in arrears because it's really hard to do it ahead because it's a math issue. And so I know many of the counties are struggling with that today. I saw Klamath County just release their grant opportunity to help have landowners buy into the program. But beyond that, we still have a little money left. And we know there are some new counties that have struggled with this. It's Union, Crook, and Gilliam County. And so we will be working September, October with those counties and the first 5 to allocate the remaining, I believe it's approximately $400,000 to see what we can do with that money. The other thing I wanted to talk about is you've heard Director Hansen talk a little bit and myself about collaboration across agency programs. This was our first real big test into that. The budget's in our plant program with the good folks and the scientists that we have like Tom in that program, and Tom's going to get to talk about the guidebook at the end here. But they were already swamped with invasives, Japanese beetle, emerald ash borer, and those things. Grasshopper's different. We're not trying to eradicate it. It's a production pest. We don't have people statewide necessarily without hiring a bunch of seasonals And this was an opportunity to call on our good friend Casey here and his shipping point and seasonal staff that he has working in other programs to say, can we stand up a survey program very quickly? We used the main entomologist we have that's a natural resource specialist 3 that historically has worked on grasshopper and is housed in our Hermiston office right here. And so what I wanted to talk to you about is in a matter of weeks, we were able to use staff. We used about 10 staff for this program. We didn't add any staff. We used 10 existing staff. We used 2 brand inspectors, 5 shipping point inspectors, the entomologist I just referred to, and 2 shared managers. One of the things I heard in the counties, and I personally went to Klamath County, they were struggling because they kept telling me, we're different, Lauren, we're not like Burns. We're not like that. And so I went down there and they said, you have someone right here that we think could do our work. We know him, and can he possibly do these surveys here? And so Casey worked really hard to make sure that he was available in his other work to help do those surveys. I think that's the key for this agency going forward. How do we use the staff we have in the areas to do things like this that are on the ground, on people's farms, that can make a difference? I think state meat inspection program is one of those. This one's certainly one of that. And we've talked about that before. The collaboration, there is no way we could have stood up this program and done the surveys that we did without the cross-collaborative work across those 2 programs. And I wanted to mention that because it worked. We got a lot done in a quick amount of time. I will tell you, we have a little survey money left. Biologically, you probably wouldn't want to do post-surveys late in the year. Casey brought to me, and then I'm going to switch to Casey and have him talk about what a survey actually is real quickly, and then we'll switch to Thomas. We believe with the fires, the wildfires, one would think they burned up the grasshoppers. Not so. I was getting calls from landowners that said, Lauren, they're flying away, and where are they going? And I thought, that's a good question. I have no idea where they're going. So I think Casey's going to continue to use some of those staff to do some post-surveys to see if we can get a little bit ahead of next year. The last thing I'll leave you with, and then Casey's going to talk about what a survey is and is not. This is not something that can be done part-time. And what I mean by that is if the state is really going to tackle problems like this, it needs to be consistent. Yes, probably funded year after year after year so people can count on it. Idaho has a $5 million program. Some years they use it, some years they don't. But it's consistent. And they've been able to make a dent in their suppression programs. And Oregon's struggling to figure out what that might look like. It's not a full cost recovery program. I don't think it ever will be. But when you're looking at eradication costs on a per acre basis of $8 to $10 an acre, and if the state can provide or the counties can provide $3 to $4 of that, that's a big help when you're trying to do that. So, Casey, would you mind talking about the surveys, and then we'll give Tom a little bit of time to talk about the guidebook.
Casey Prentice for the record, and good morning, Chair Miller, Director Sharplow-Hanson, and board members. Surveys are honestly pretty straightforward with grasshoppers. We have staff that go through some training. Lauren mentioned the NRS 3 here. The entomologist helps train that staff. They're given a vehicle and the equipment they need, and we send them out. It generally starts with calls from ranchers and farmers that say, hey, I've got a grasshopper problem, or from the Bureau of Land Management, Forest Service. And we start there and then work out. They pick a site kind of central to where we're going to start working. They count grasshoppers hopping out of one. They imagine 1 square foot in 9 times, and then they total it up and divide it by 9. That gives you your square yard count. So, and we saw counts this year as high as 300 per square yard, and then after that they just list them as too numerous to count. 8, like Laura mentioned, 8 is economic. We also have a very widespread and fast-growing Mormon cricket population. Used to be just strictly in the south end of Malheur County, and now they're as high up as central Malheur County and as far east has the Idaho border, and then we also have them as far west as the Harney Lake County line now. So, and surveys, we used folks in the local areas, and that was part of the reason we were able to stand this up so well. We actually used one of our brand inspectors in Jordan Valley, take care of those southern ends of Malheur and Harney, which was really valuable. So, is there questions on survey? Again, it's really pretty straightforward, but it is important.
Just real quick, when the survey is done, is it a survey that identifies Instar or?
Yeah, absolutely. So they're going to identify, they do some sweeping after each stop and identify species, and then of course Instar stages. And interestingly enough, if you look back at the historical record, in the past we generally had one pretty steady Instar with some scattering on both sides. Now you see anywhere from adults to first Instar in the same areas. So population has changed and the hatching has changed. Oh, yes, Lauren mentioned, one of the things we do look for in the spring is egg beds. So, and we can, a little bit of that they can identify in the fall if they see hoppers amassing in places where there's, loose soil, mostly south facing, something that drains well. They like real light, sandy or gravelly soil, and at least in, in places they can find it. And then those egg beds, you can kind of watch those in the spring and see. And they found quite a few of them in the lower Klamath Marsh. And they actually were able to treat around that and keep those hoppers from getting out into the croplands. So we do identify quite a few egg beds that way. Any further questions?
Are you guys just surveying for grasshoppers, or are you looking at are there any like predator species or anything? I don't know.
No.
Not really? Okay.
No, not really. Grasshoppers and crickets at the same time. But we have had some discussions about looking for noxious weeds and some other things while we're doing those surveys to kind of help other programs and combine things. Other questions? Thank you all very much for your time.
One of the things, how much time do we have, Chair?
No, I just want to make sure we are continuing on to talk about the guidebook then.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
great, thank
we
you.
absolutely are. One of the things before we did 4,060 survey stops. That's a lot of stops. And then we have an online portal where landowners can submit, hey, I think I have a problem. Can someone come visit me? There were 107 of those. That portal, I think, can be expanded to be used even greater. I don't think the word got out necessarily about that, but that was an important piece of this for people to be able to do some self-reporting. And that if this program were to continue in the future, I think we would expand our education and technical assistance so landowners can do some of the walking that Casey talked about already. Not that we don't want to do it, it's just they're capable. So in the few minutes we have, Tom, why don't you talk about this wonderful guidebook, and then I'll do some wrap up to that.
Thank you very much. So I do have a couple of pictures to show you guys. If I can just share my screen, then I would love to be able to show you some images. I'm extremely happy that I don't think I'm sharing my screen yet, am I?
No. Here we go. Here we go. Maybe.
Yeah, that ain't it.
Actually, I think
Okay.
you are, but it's really small.
Okay. Let's see if I can just get this.
Is this in our book?
You have two windows up.
There
and
we go.
there
Can
you
you
go.
see
There
that?
we go. Yes.
Okay, so thank you very, very much. So again, my name is Tom Valenti, and I'm one of the entomologists in the IPPM entomology lab. So thank you very much. I'm really excited to announce our newest identification guide out of the lab. But just a real quick overview of what I do in the lab. The team of us, there are several, for like 5 entomologists in there that are responsible for doing all of the pest survey sample identifications. So all of our surveys, all of the traps that we have out statewide, they all come into the lab And one of my major responsibilities is going through that. And I've been doing the grasshopper sweep surveys probably for over maybe close to 15 years now, which is how I really developed my skills for identifying baby grasshoppers. And I am so surprised that the taxonomic infrastructure of the United States really doesn't include people who identify grasshoppers on a regular basis. This is something that I've been really grateful to develop as a skill. So in addition to our pest survey sample identifications, the lab also does identifications for other agencies. We get a lot of things from OSU Extension. We work for other Department of Agriculture programs like nursery inspection. We take samples from business, industry, and the public. And if you report a pest problem on the Oregon Invasive Species Hotline, and the URL is right there, I am one of the entomologists that responds to those hotline reports. We also put out identification tools in the lab. The grasshopper book is just our latest. We're responsible for the reporting of new exotics in the state, and we keep track of pest distribution records by county. We put out pest alerts and pest management information for whoever needs it. Why did we start to collect images of baby grasshoppers? Because baby grasshoppers don't preserve well. And so there's very little literature to help identify immature grasshoppers. There are lots of really good references for adult grasshoppers, but immature grasshoppers, the stage that we really need to be paying attention to, really there have not been a lot of publications to help identify them. The last one was in 1988. And this was the field guide to common western grasshoppers. It's a really great reference. Everybody uses it. But on the left here are a couple of images from that. We knew that we would be able to improve on the photography in that book and put out a nice little book that would be more useful to more people and more relevant to Oregon. Because we would only include species in Oregon. So here are two of our pests, the big-headed grasshopper on top. This is Fott's 1988 image, and ours from our guide. And then the migratory grasshopper, that's probably our biggest pest. These are first instars, and you do need to identify the babies if you're going to head off developing pest problems. So one of the things that I'm really proud of is that every single image in our book is of a live anesthetized grasshopper. So our colors are true to life, but we've used our extended depth of field photography system so that we have really clear in-focus images. I need to acknowledge that the photography in this book was done by a number of people, myself, J. Buck Dunlap, who's also responsible for the layout of the book, Thomas Shahan, and Steve Valley. This is our extended depth of field imaging system. This is how we take all of these great images. So it's basically a camera attached to a microscope lens. We put a specimen on the stage. The microscope lift and also the light rail are attached to a computer so that the camera takes multiple pictures of the same specimen, moving a very small amount each time. And then we use an algorithm to stitch together the pixels that are in focus for each image so that we get an image that is perfectly in focus. Conventional photography means that some parts of the image are going to be farther away and out of focus. We get really clear diagnostic images using this system. And we can also use it for live things like grasshoppers. So we started collecting images of baby grasshoppers from the survey programs a long time ago. Finally, we've been able to put them together. I just want to go over some of the guide highlights. This is one of the pages out of the guide. These are all of the immature instars of clearwing grasshopper. That's another one of our biggest pests. I hope that this guide will help us to identify the grasshoppers that are out there when they first come out. This guide illustrates all of the mobile life stages, that is to say, not the eggs, but we got all of the baby grasshoppers, including the tiny first instars. And I need to acknowledge again the cooperation of the Eastern Oregon Field Office and also USDA APHIS PPQ in Portland for helping us with sweep sampling to provide the specimens for imaging. And okay, so this is the table of contents of the guide. I'm really glad to hear that you guys got to see it yesterday, so that you've already looked through it. So I'll go through this really fast. We've included all of the grasshopper species.
Tom, we only have just a few minutes, so real quick.
Real quick. We've included all of the pest species. We have all of the instars of all of the pest species. We have county distribution maps for each pest species. And at the end, there's a checklist of all of the grasshoppers that have been recorded in Oregon. You can get the PDF by going to odaguides.us. Go down to the bottom, click on the guides button. That brings you to this page. Those are all of our identification guides. Thank you very much.
Tom, thank you. Just as a reminder for the board, for those of you that went to North Valley, you saw the cameras and things that Tom was talking about there, and state-of-the-art facility there. This was a long project, and I think it's wonderful. It's way up to date from what we had. Kudos to Tom and the staff. It's kind of a big deal, I think, for people to have that. And since I will be retired and probably have nothing to do, I will put together some multiple choice tests for you guys and see if you've read Tom's guidebook for you. But with a hop, skip, and a jump, I think we're done.
We're speechless with hop, skip, and jump.
I don't know that I can wrap it up better than that. So Tom came to one of our staff meetings about 2 weeks ago with this new guidebook, with just tremendous energy around the accomplishment. And it seemed like this was a really good one to bring to the board, to share some of the unique work that we're doing across ODA, and especially after you had visited the North Valley facility and the publications we're putting out. And frankly, the national recognition around this. These are very unique opportunities. So we have amazing staff at ODA with tremendous talent doing cutting edge work. And although grasshoppers, may look like a prehistoric species, they are a problem. And, I just thank Tom for your time and your passion towards this work, Tom. It was really evident in the presentation you gave in Salem and evident again today. So thank you for your commitment.
Well, you're really welcome. And, we've been fighting grasshoppers in this country and others forever. I mean, Little House on the Prairie days. This is just something we have to do.
Yes. I did have a question, Tom, and so comprehensive, and I'm being a frustrated entomologist that never did get her full degree in entomology, trying to ID instars of all these different, I guess we're talking subspecies, I'll get that wrong. But how can this book also help others in other areas? Is there such a diversity from a grasshopper standpoint? Because this is a lot of work, and just to share this also with other states, that obviously everybody has grasshopper problems to some degree or another. Could
Yes.
you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so our pest grasshoppers are a subset of the pest grasshoppers that are common in the West. Our biggest pest is probably the migratory grasshopper, Melanopus sanguinipes. And so that's a pest all across the Western United States. We don't have as many pests as some of the states to the east or to the south. So I wanted to put together a book that would be specific to Oregon and useful for our trappers, our scouts, people in Oregon. But these bad guys, these 9 big bad pests, are the 9 big bad pests of the
Everywhere.
West.
Great. Super, thank you. And thanks, I get kudos again to this department for how quickly you can stand up a need for agriculture. Tyler, do you want to?
Yeah, just
Another
like to
comment?
make a comment, and the problem in Klamath was very, very severe year before last, and although there is work to do, we really appreciate your guys' effort, and it did make a big step in the right direction. So thank you for all that you did.
Great. Yes, definitely kudos. Luisa?
Yes, Luisa Santamaria. I have a question. So knowing the different species of this grasshopper, how that help you to do the management? What is the importance to recognize all the species? Do we need to know, or just what we do with all the beautiful or different? How can we use more this, and how can we? Yeah, I don't know.
Casey Prentice for the record. So knowing the species, and Tom could also speak to this probably better than I can, but knowing the species a lot of times helps you determine how quick you have to treat, if they're going to move, what you can treat with, where you can treat, and where they're going to be. Because not all species behave the same.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Thank you. As Casey explained the survey before, grasshopper management is largely a numbers game because it's about densities. But knowing the species and how many species are involved in a particular outbreak will really help with the management decisions. Different grasshoppers do behave differently. They have different life histories and are on different schedules. The big problem down in the Klamath Marsh is clear-winged grasshopper, which lays its eggs communally and makes daily movements. Big problems farther east and north tend to be species of Melanoplus. Now, they're not really mobile as nymphs, but they really, really can fly as adults. We can bring a lot of specific biology to bear on a specific problem if we know exactly which animal we're dealing with.
So I think about this guidebook in a couple ways. For the layperson, landowner, really the pictures are worth everything. I think I might have this, and this. That information can get relayed to our scientists and the OSU experts and all of those who then can help work with, it's a jump start on identifying what the issue is and that. So this really has kind of two purposes. Those that live in that science space have this comprehensive book and can be of the technical assistance. The landowners themselves have something that they can actually look through and say, I think this is what we're dealing with on my farm. And so I think about it that way.
Maybe not just landowners, but I think 9-year-old kids might really, my daughter's going to love this.
There you go.
All right, Casey, one more comment did you have?
I was just going to, and Casey Prentice for the record, I was going to mention that we started this season having some of our staff, our manager here in Hermiston, some of you met, Pete Valise, did some trainings with irrigation staff in the Klamath area, with ranchers and farmers, as well as some fertilizer company, chemical company staff in Lake County. And I think this guidebook where it will really help is when they get these grasshoppers and have them, they can say when they call in, hey, you know what, these look like first instar to me. I really think the instar identification may be as important as a species ID to kind of complete Luisa's question. So thank you. And thanks for everybody's time.
Hey, thanks. Great presentation. And it'll go down in the record that it was a hopping presentation for Lawrence last. All right, moving on to board business. We always get a very comprehensive summary in our ODA program reports, and I'm always amazed at the breadth and depth that this department touches when I have a chance to look at those. So this is a chance for board members to ask any questions or make any comments on those reports. We never have a board member that's virtual today ask questions, but in case she is interested in asking a question, I'll open it to Director Boyer.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. Rusty, did I hear that Rusty's in the room?
Yes.
So Rusty, I have a question about SB 479 from the audit and some of the concerns that came out of the donation part of that. I'm curious about that.
Yeah, Rusty Rock, Department of Ag. So SB 479 is related to legislation from the 23 session, I believe. And that was, the legislature asked that there be a third pathway for donation of meat products from growers through custom processing facilities. The existing pathways that are either through a USDA pathway, which is pretty limited, or through a state meat inspection facility, which is also limited because of the newness of the program. So adding in that third custom option, it did create a little bit of conflict because that is contrary to federal law. So we think we've found a pathway through. We're working on finaling the details in negotiation with USDA on how we could complete that by giving a temporary grant of inspection to a custom processor for a limited duration where they would still have to meet the federal requirements. And then we would grant that temporary limited pathway for not only limited duration in time, but also limited to donation of that meat product. So it wouldn't be going into open commerce, it would be going into commerce of donation. So that is a pathway that USDA found to be acceptable. It took a bit of negotiation. USDA was very nervous about it. It triggered a full-on audit of our state meat inspection program this year, which was very pointed in the questions they're asking around that very specific topic. So once we have those rules finalized and published, then the draft that we're working on right now, it should be acceptable to both meet the intent of the legislature and also maintain our good standing with our federal partners.
All right, good job. Thank you. That's kind of fun to learn that. I appreciate it.
Yep, it's a good question.
And then I have a question for Jonathan. Is he in the room?
Jonathan is not, but
Okay,
maybe.
I'm curious how many public comments came in on SB 85 that they're reviewing right now. Does anybody know?
Everybody's kind of shaking their heads. We'll have to get back to you, Barbara.
Okay. All right. And then on one final comment, reading Sunny's report on wildfires. So our conservation district, Yamhill SWCD, owns a lot of property, and one of the properties we acquired last year has a really large retired cattle building. So we decided to put that on the inventory of the Yamhill County Emergency Management System for livestock. So they were so appreciative that this is now on their inventory list for in case of wildfires in this area, that they can bring livestock there. So I just encourage people to kind of think that way. If you see any vacant buildings in your area, yeah, they were thrilled. Not many people reach out to them and saying, "Hey, I got an empty building. Put it on your inventory." So it made me think. Reading Sunny's report, it made me think of that. So I just wanted to alert on that situation. That is all I have.
Thank you, Director Boyer, and a very good idea if we do think of facilities in other areas that could be housing livestock, because I do think that's an issue throughout. So great catch on that. So any other questions or comments from board members regarding the program reports? Okay. All right, seeing none, thank you. We already performed the OWEB report when we had a little time earlier. We'll move into Work Group A's report next.
I'm Josh Zielinski. I'll be reporting out for Work Group A. The quiet one. We didn't get any comments or anything, unlike the other Work Group B. We reviewed 3 resolutions, and I'll just go through them, I think, as they're listed in our packets here. Resolution 169, the resolution that deals with the need for documented agricultural workforce. We need to hold this for minor edits to some statistics in the first couple of items of the background. That should be really quick. I think it'll be ready for everyone to move it down the road at the next meeting. Jess was going to be doing those, and he's not here, so it's falling onto someone else's lap. Do we need to do a motion or anything when we're just holding it? Okay. Regarding Resolution 266, which is deals with the collective bargaining for agricultural workers and employers. We recommend moving this just as it's written, meaning there are no proposed changes.
Okay. Is that in the form of
have a motion to move this forward?
Do you want to make the motion?
Okay. Can I make the motion?
You can, since you're not the chair of.
I would like to make a motion to move forward Resolution 266 as written.
Is there a second?
Like a second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the resolution? Obviously, with the changes last proposed has been out for public comment. There were no public comments. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Great. Got one through.
And one more, Resolution 316 is our resolution that deals with the federal minimum wage parity. Once again, we need to hold for some minor edits to some statistics in the background portion. I don't think this will be a problem to have ready for the next meeting. We can move it forward and move on from it then.
Great.
That's Work Group A. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
On
All
to the more
right.
exciting one.
Appreciate it. And when we're done with the resolutions, we'll talk about new resolution opportunities. So Work Group B, thank you, Director Harper. Much
You're welcome, Chair Miller. So yeah, Work Group B, a lot more exciting for us this whole year. But 314, as you kind of heard today, everyone seems to be that had a comment was in support of how it reads. So that one we would like to recommend to the board for approval.
Actually, I thought 314 we said we were going to hold on.
Oh,
and
okay.
have for the panel.
I'm getting them backwards.
You're getting it backwards. He talked about 315 first. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, 315.
Okay, 315. So yes, that one we want to recommend for board approval. Yes. So we'll start with that one.
Okay. So we'll use that as a form of a motion?
Yes.
315.
I'd like to move that as a motion.
Is there a second for 315 approval?
Eric Orm, second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Again, no additional public comments. Those last amendments were out. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay.
Okay, yes, so I had those notes on the wrong line, my bad. So yeah, 314, we did get quite a bit, and we did make some edits in terms of updating just numbers, percents, values, since it was not accurate. But we want to hold it to the next meeting and have basically some board work, maybe panel work, bring resolutions and relate to it, and to try to see if maybe there's something we can work in there to try to, I guess, take into account what people have been saying. So we're going to hold that to the next meeting, and there sounds like work group B will have some work to do before that meeting.
Okay, and I think we had also talked about, since this issue has had so much public comment, and I know I've gotten individual comments from the work group A members to say, wow, what all's going on there. I think we would have the panel as a committee of the whole of the board. If we brought it a panel to, we've got so many different comments, it's sometimes hard to guide exactly where and what. The other thing we are looking at doing is looking at the agritourism received a lot of comments, even though this is a different resolution. So to look at it more in a collective fashion, to kind of have perspectives of people presented from different, I shouldn't say different sides, but just different perspectives presented. So Director Henson, we can look at whether we want to do that as a separate, like virtual, like we had the training, but this time with a panel situation, or we want to do that in person, depending upon the rest of the agenda, if that's okay with the board. So, does that work? Okay. All right. So, thank you, Director Harper. I really appreciate you giving that report. The next piece of this is, I think by process, and now that I'm in year 4, I feel like such a senior person here. Anyway, since by way of process, at any time a board member can bring up the need for another resolution. And we did have a request for another resolution to be developed, and that would be on ag overtime. And what I might suggest is that we obviously would work with ODA staff, but if there are volunteers of maybe a small task force, 2 or 3 board members that would be willing to provide that input, so we could actually look at a draft at our December board meeting. So, we've got, I think, enough time. I think there's enough information out there that we can put something together that makes some sense, because we've definitely heard about this from constituencies ever since ag overtime passed. And so it's probably good that we can have a chance to focus on that. So does that make sense, Director Hansen, that we get that put together?
Yeah, I think it does make sense to have some kind of a draft, and I think I would consider having some type of maybe panel or presentation. We should know a little bit more as we get closer to the legislative session. I'm hearing, throughout the ag groups, there's interest in doing something in terms of potential modifications. And there may be more legislative clarity around what might be happening. And so I think that we could think about tying those together. And so when we get to the next spot about talking about board dates, I think we should talk about board formats going forward for a little while, and maybe thinking about some modification of what we're doing and how we're doing it, and see if it works.
That sounds great. Do I have some volunteers to assist? Josh, thank you. Ellie, thank you. I'd be happy to oh, good. Yes. Well, Chad. Good. And if you need backup, I'd be happy to help on this one too. So, okay. Thank you. So we've got Josh, Chad, and Ellie that would be on the team, and I'd be happy to be included in discussions as we go forward. So, great. Okay. Any other discussions?
Chair, I have a comment on this topic.
Sure.
So I have mentioned this in the past that if we put a panel together, I would like to see some field workers on that panel, not just leads of companies. I would like to actually hear from the workers also.
I think you're right, Barbara. That's the voice that was missing the first time that this passed.
Yeah, I think everyone would applaud that because that's who we're hearing the most from. So thank you. Great. Okay. Any other on resolution stuff? I'll just throw this one out just because I thought about it. And I didn't realize that Oregon was the worst in the country for hunger. And I don't know if we have a hunger resolution. And I don't know if we need a hunger resolution, but maybe it's something you guys could look at from the standpoint of, again, building awareness of the issue and the fact that we want agriculture, and agriculture already is, but even more abundantly, if I may use that, to be a participant in dealing with the hunger issues. So if we could just kind of see, I can't recall ever seeing one, but maybe there is.
I don't remember, and so we'll do some work on it and think about some.
And it may not be a resolution, it may be something else, but if we could, yeah.
We heard from those, the folks from Farmers Ending Hunger, but we've heard from several groups that are addressing hunger in lots of different ways over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
The schools and all these things. So I think it would kind of be a nice way to recognize, like, what we're hearing is start to make some resolutions where we don't have one already.
And how we can fill holes and work together and promote and.
They asked for support, and then we just,
yeah,
individually we were maybe supporting.
Making notes.
Doing anything.
Collectively.
Yeah, I mean, they're asking us to do something, and we're kind of like, great, nice to hear you.
Good, okay. All right, so next is board meeting dates and locations, and this is in our tab, the end of tab 13, or 12, right? I'm sorry. Did you have a comment? Okay. Oh, board dates, oh yes, board dates and locations, so yes. Ty?
Okay, don't think, Ty Cleaver for the record. Probably winter is not the best time to travel to the basin, but for our spring, early summer meeting, I would like to invite everyone to the Klamath Basin next year.
Excellent. We'll put Klamath on for a location, that's for sure. So I guess arriving at dates is so hard, but if we could possibly do that, and I really appreciate that we took a look at options, and I think our first option was looking at, again, if you picked a month, within that month, a lot of times our board dates have fallen in the second week of that month, a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so I guess the question would be, does that work for folks? Does that not? And then if it doesn't quite, I still want to talk about, then we pick a month and look at a cadence potentially, so we could say in advance, this is kind of what we're looking at. So if anybody's applying for the board too, I remember when I applied, because my schedule is so crazy with doing too many things on boards, but if you know in advance about when the board meets, then you can have people think about whether they can actually serve at those times too. So I think that's helpful, versus we've had it basically open to whatever works for the group. We may not get there this time, but we're attempting to do so. So that's the question as far as that, if any given week, month, second or third week, how does that fit? Ellie, I think you wanted to, Director Norris? No. Any real, and I know we got to arrive at the month, how we start this.
Chair, can I can't make any one of these dates, none of them that are proposed on here, because second Wednesday of the month is my Yamhill SWCD meeting. So, and I normally make the Board of Ag meetings, so I kind of beg to differ that they've been Wednesday to, or Tuesday to Thursday, because I've been on the board for a while, and I rarely miss Board of Ag meetings. So my proposal would be Wednesday afternoon to Friday noon of these weeks. I could do that because my meetings are early in the morning.
Okay.
Barbara, this is Carla.
Since I've been working with the board, we have always done Tuesday through Thursday. Not that we can't change, but again, I just want to share that the dates that are in your proposal are just random weeks, right? I think the more important piece, if we could get to, is the month, and then we could pick the best week within the month.
Okay.
And
Okay.
if that works for folks.
And I think it's also dependent upon, when boards have quarterly meetings and they set those quarterly meetings, so it's also depending upon the month. So I think we're going to have a similar debate, but let's try the month thing first. So the question might be, do you want to start, we kind of, sort of did this year, with a January, April, August, it was September, hello. January, we skipped, yeah. January, April, it would be August, July, and October kind of time frame for meetings. And then we'll talk about the week. And so the January start might be before the legislature gets really going. We've got a long session. Now, granted, it's not while they're in session. Well, they get started kind of, sort of.
So the January date that's provided is pre-legislative session, but it does coordinate with the opportunity to meet with the Environmental Quality Commission. Which was something I think that there was a desire to start maybe doing some of those joint, did I get it wrong? Oh, sorry. Doing some more of those joint type meetings. So that is one of them, that it works around trying to get that coordination now, if we were going to do that.
Okay. And I could not be present, but I can be virtual.
Okay.
Yeah, but that doesn't really matter that much. So if we want to look at January, April, July, October. Okay, should we try that, then we start on dates?
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Ellie Norris for record, just so we're aware, anything that falls into June and maybe into early July, I will not be able to attend. That's our big harvest. So,
yeah. Okay. All right.
April and May for me.
Pardon?
Same with April and May for me.
Okay. It's called agriculture, right?
Okay.
We're kind of crazy.
Chair Miller.
Yes.
Eric Orm. I could make anything work, but as far as for ag schedule, I actually like the third option, the third.
I'd second that too.
January and February are really filled with other meetings, usually travel meetings for other organizations, and March is before spring work really gets busy. June is right before harvest for us. September is right after harvest, and so and then December is usually our slowest time of the year. But that's just my vote. But I can make other ones work. I'll be flexible. The first one for me is really tough because January, there's a lot of travel for other boards. April is super busy for spring work. July is right in the middle of harvest, and October is right in the middle of seeding. But that's just.
Okay. All right. So we're looking at potentially March as an option for the timing for next year kicking off. And so if we looked at that, again, I know this is really, really hard to do. So that idea of a second week in March, and you're saying, Barbara, you're saying Wednesday, Thursday, Friday instead. I have a direct conflict for each of those, but we can deal with that, I guess.
Well, what about the first week, the first week of March, or the third, the week of the 3rd, or the week of the 24th?
Again, the dates were on the memo were just a proposed.
Right.
date as the second week of the month. We could meet the first week, the second, third, fourth week, whatever, just.
Okay.
We're a place to start.
Okay. This is, yeah. Director, do you have any insights here? This is where we've been up against this every time to take a look, but.
No matter what we do, somebody's going to have a conflict. And I think we need to acknowledge somebody will have a conflict. I think the important thing is we get in a cadence so that it's more predictable. And then, do what we can in terms of trying to get people in person, because I truly believe the in-person meetings are much more meaningful. The conversation is much more meaningful, and the engagement with the presenters is much more meaningful. So if we like the March, June, I know you're going to have an issue if traveling.
And that's literally when the day our harvest starts. So I probably wouldn't even be able to attend virtually.
Virtually either.
Yeah, so.
Yeah.
In June.
In June.
Yeah. Just moved it.
Just that one, that's our harvest started on the 11th this year, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So generally, I would ask, are people okay with March, June, September, December? Because I know September is NASDA. Okay, fine. We'll try and work around NASDA. Or
maybe we'll meet at NASDA.
Or, we have very capable staff. You probably don't have to have me. So that's the other part
That's
of it.
a good point.
They're very capable people to make that work.
Well, if we started doing I guess I'll just ask about the February question, just to throw that out as a start. We didn't like January. We went to March. Is February the same problem as January? But I guess that's still.
In that week, Eric Horn, in that week, it is just for this year, or for this coming year. But what about switching to the first week of every month in those third month quarters? So you do the first week of March, first week of June to get in front of harvest, and first week of September to get us away from the NASDA meeting.
And then it'd be first week of.
Again, I'm flexible and can just leave the field, but.
Okay. Okay. I know I have a conflict first week of December, but again, we all can't make everything. So what if we look at first week of the month, starting in March? Does that work? Okay, let's work on that, and we won't absolutely lock in an absolute stone until we can kind of check some other things, but I'd say let's start with that. Does that work, Eric?
Yes, Eric Orm. And then do we want to possibly look at that time changing to a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? Or I guess see how that works with staff, and if we're running into Wednesday issues with other groups, then it's something to look at the same time.
Okay.
I think having these closer to the weekend would be better for me as a business owner. Like, I can use that time to travel instead of 3 days in the middle of I'm basically gone this week.
Right.
Which is hard.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in the day-to-day. I'm not like an owner that's just kicking back. Like, I'm getting messages constantly. It's pretty hard to focus.
So we can look at Thursday, Wednesday, Friday for those designated months first week. So, okay. All right. So let's do we don't do doodle polls, do we? No, we could. I'd just say let's maybe just land on that, have more discussion. If we need a doodle poll, we will. How's that?
I have one more question. If we wanted to do some type of a joint meeting with the EQC in January, would you want to do some condensed special meeting as in part of their meeting so that we would get that time to interact with, another commission on, it's on their schedule, but we could do a special meeting that's a condensed something.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? Because I can't be there physically. I could certainly be there virtually.
Their January meeting dates, proposed meeting dates are the 9th and 10th of January.
I think that whole January thing, I think, is probably what's holding us up. So I guess the question would be for EQC, if we can look at later in the year that might end up being better for everybody, because it looks like that January is not a good month for people.
Their preference was to meet earlier in the year because that's when they're in the Portland, Salem area, and their end of the year meeting dates, September and November, are out for them as far as their agenda schedule and their routine and their meetings. So they were proposing the January. They may. They also have a meeting in March, so maybe we could coordinate March if we can settle on some dates. I'm having a meeting with their board coordinator after next week to see what our meeting dates ended up being. So maybe we could target that March meeting if they were willing to consider that date as well.
Okay. Lisa, can we leave that up to you guys and we can work on it? So, okay, thank you. That is always so painful, but appreciate everybody's indulgence going through that and trying to make this work as best we can. Why don't we now talk about format, Director Hansen, the ideas that you've got?
Again, maybe one of the benefits of being around for a long time in and out is this notion of going to Wednesday to Friday. Early in my career, that's when the board met. So that's nothing new. Early in my career, we didn't have committees. Committees came along, and at one point we had 4 different committees. Now we've gone to 2 kind of work groups. The one thing that has struck me, again, this is all part of thinking strategic plan, level setting, building foundation. Should we think about more of the work, rather than having committees for a period of time, being full board meetings, where we're doing some more of that level setting around issues? Because we will have 2 more new board members soon, and thinking about the complexity of some of the work and the discussions that we're having, being able to spend some more time together, hearing it all in one place, being able to ask questions together and creating that conversation space, I believe could be helpful for us. I don't think it has to add necessarily days to the meeting, but it changes the format a little bit. And we can try it, and if it doesn't work, we try something different. I never feel married to anything like that. It's like, let's see what works, and if it doesn't work, we can make modifications to it. But I am interested in trying to figure out how to continue to level set with so many